In this video, we will look at using the Input Supply window. This is a data entry time-saving tool. If a lot of fields have the same applications done on them, those inputs can be entered once here and then copied and pasted into the fields instead of entering the same data over and over. There are two ways you can use it. The first is to select an input one at a time from within the Input Supply window. The second way is to copy a list from the Inputs tab of a field that you already have data entered into. Using this feature assumes that you already entered all the inputs you need for the season into the Operations Setup window's Input Prices and Rates tab. We will begin by building an input supply sheet one input at a time. From the toolbar at the top of the screen, click the Input Supply button. The Add or Edit Input Supply Sheet window will pop up. Click the Add Sheet button. When the Input Supply window opens, the year and operator that you had in the management selectors is displayed at the top. Click the Crop drop-down selector and select the crop that you will be using the inputs on. Next, type in a description for your input supply sheet. The leftmost column is giving you a hint on where to start. After selecting the empty select cell, you get a drop-down list to pick from. This is data from the Operations Setup window, where the input data with prices and rates were entered for the current year and operator. After selecting an input, the cost, purchase, rate, and applied columns will display what was set up in that Operations Setup window. The dollar per area is a calculated column that shows the cost per area of that input. Enter the application date in the date column and continue selecting inputs to complete your input supply sheet. In the upper right hand corner of the input supply window, the total dollar per area will update as you add inputs. First, we will add some dry fertilizer. And some custom application. Next, we'll add some burn down herbicides. And sprayer fuel. Next, some nitrogen. And some application fuel. Then some seed. And some planting fuel. Now some post herbicides. And some sprayer fuel. Then some harvest fuel expenses. Then we will eventually have some fuel costs delivering crops. At this point, we have an input supply sheet that can be copied and pasted into any of the fields. In order to do that, right-click the top left corner selector above the arrow on the top record. The Edit command menu will pop up. Click Copy, and that will copy the entire list. Now click OK on the Input Supply window to close, and close on the Add or Edit Input Supply Sheet pop-up window to close it. Now go through the management selectors, picking the fields and crops you wish to paste the copied inputs into. If you're not already on the Inputs tab, click on it. For each field and crop, right-click the top left corner selector above the arrow on the top record. The Edit command menu will pop up. Click Paste, and ProAg Manager will ask you to confirm this. Click Yes, and that will paste the copied inputs into the crop and field you have chosen in the management selectors. Next, we will look at the second method of building an input supply sheet, and that is simply copying a list from the Inputs tab of a field you already have data entered into. We will repeat the copy and paste routine, except this time we will copy from the Inputs tab and paste to the Input Supply window. If you haven't already done so, select the year, operator, farm, field, and crop you wish to copy the data from. If you want to select the entire list of inputs, you would right-click on the top left corner selector above the arrow on the top record. The Edit command will pop up, and you would click Copy, and that would copy the entire list. If you just want to select certain inputs, hold the cursor over the left-hand row selectors, then click and hold while moving the cursor down the row selectors. Do this over the specific rows of inputs you want. The rows will turn black as you select them. Then move the cursor away from the row selectors and right-click. The Edit Command menu will pop up. Click Copy, and that will copy just the selected rows. From the toolbar at the top of the screen, click the Input Supply button. The Add or Edit Input Supply sheet window will pop up. Click the Add Sheet button. Click the Crop drop-down selector and select the crop you'll be using the inputs on. Next, type in a description for your Input Supply sheet. Right-click on the top left corner selector above the arrow on the top record. The Edit Command menu will pop up. Click Paste. ProAg Manager will ask you to confirm this. Click Yes, and that will paste the copied inputs into the Input Supply sheet. In the upper right-hand corner of the Input Supply window, the total dollar per area will update for that list of inputs. While you could also copy and paste inputs directly between fields in the Inputs tab, we don't recommend that due to the following limitations. First off, copying and pasting from field to field in the Inputs tab will paste the area and amounts applied from one field to another, actually causing more work by having to correct the area column for every field. Secondly, that will paste the share percent of inputs from one field to another, which could be a possible problem. But by using the Input Supply window, you can eliminate those two issues. Copying and pasting from it does not overwrite the field's area or share columns. So it makes no difference which direction you copy and paste regarding the Inputs tab and the Input Supply window. Either direction will not affect the field area or share percent columns. By using the Input Supply window, you only have to change the few things that are different in each field. Maybe the dates need tweaked, or an input was applied on part of a field, or one input needs to be changed. If you have a lot of fields treated similarly, changing just a few details will take a lot less time than entering every input in every field. Thank you for choosing ProAg Manager, and check back for more videos on how to use the program.